Title of the first section is Graph Parabolas. First equation is f of x, f parentheses x, which again is a fancy notation for y, and the equation is x squared plus 2. Same steps as we did in the previous lesson. We'll make a t-table, and we'll use the numbers -2 down to +2. For this question, we'll be squaring the numbers first and then adding 2 to the value. So for the first problem, we have -2 squared. -2 times -2 would be +4, and adding 2 to that, our y value would be 6. -1 squared would be +1, and again adding 2 from the equation, our y value would be 3. 0 squared would be 0, adding 2 to that would be 2. 1 squared would be 1, adding 2 to that would be 3. And last number, 2 squared, 2 times 2 would be 4, and adding 2 to that would be 6. Graphing these points to make a parabola shape. We have 6 on the y-axis, we'll go up to 6, and a couple spots on the x-axis. First point, -2 and 6. Again, the x-axis goes left to right, and the y-axis goes up and down. So -2, 6 would be to the left for -2, and then up to +6. -1, 3 to the left and -1, and up to +3. 0, 2. 0 for the x would be in the middle. 2 for the y value would be 2 spots up. And 1, 3. 1 to the right and 3 up. And 2, 6. 2 to the right and 6 up. Again, parabola shapes, when you have a x squared in the equation, should make a u shape. Connect them to make the parabola shape, and you can put arrows on each side as the parabola continues up. Next question, and last question for this section. Y equals -1/2 x squared plus 4. Same steps, we'll do a t-table, and we'll use the same numbers, -2 down to +2. This time when we plug numbers in, we'll square the number first, take half of that number and make it negative, and the last step we'll add 4 to it. Make sure to follow PEMDAS. We'll do exponents first, then multiply, and then add. First step, we have -2 squared. -2 squared would be +4. Half of that 4 would be 2, and the negative makes it a -2. And we're adding 4 on the end. So -2 plus 4, our y value would be +2. Same steps for the next number. -1 squared. -1 squared would be +1. Half of 1 would be 1/2. It is negative also, so we're subtracting. And we have +4 on the end. -1/2 plus 4 is the same as 4 minus 1/2, which we can make that 3.5. Plugging a 0 in. 0 squared would be 0. Half of 0 would still be 0. -0 would still be 0. And adding 4 to that would be +4. Plugging a 1 in. 1 squared would be +1. Half of 1 would be 1/2. And that negative out front makes it -1/2. +4. And again, it's the same thing as 4 minus 1/2, which would be 3.5. And last number 2. 2 squared would be 4. Half of 4 would be 2. That negative makes it -2. And +4 from the equation. -2 plus 4 would be 2. And again, you'll see some double numbers in the y value. Again, that's what makes the parabola shape. For the y values, we'll go up to 4. And graphing the points, negative 2, 2, to the left, 2, and up 2. Negative 1 and 3.5. Negative 1 and 3.5 would be just past 3. 0, 4. 0 for the x values in the middle, and 4 is up 4 spots. 1 and 3.5, to the right 1, and up to 3.5, which again is between 3 and 4. And 2, 2. To the right 2, and up 2. Again, this graph is a parabola shape that points downwards. The reason again it points downwards is if you have a negative number in front of the x squared, that flips all the values upside down. Last section of notes today is titled Ordering. Graphs from widest to narrowest. A wide graph will be a graph that starts on the left and kind of curves down to the right, but real wide. Narrow is kind of a tall, skinny graph. The 3 graphs will do for the first problem. Y equals 3x squared. Second graph, y equals 1/2 x squared. And the third one, y equals 4x squared. Each of these graphs will be a parabola shape. When you have a number in front of the x, that's going to multiply or change the number of the y value. For a wide graph, you want a small number that's close to 0. For a narrow graph, that would be a big number or highest number. So the widest graph is the smallest number, closest to 0. In this case, it's 1/2. So the widest graph would be 1/2 x squared. The next widest graph, again, the second number that's closest to 0, we have 3 and 4. 3 would be the next one. And the narrowest graph, the tallest graph, would be the biggest number, 4x squared. So the widest graph again would be the shortest graph, and the narrowest would be the tallest graph with the biggest number. Take a look at one more, last question for this section. F of x equals negative 2x squared. Second graph, f of x equals negative 2/3 x squared. And the last graph, f of x equals negative 4x squared. When you have negative numbers, again, it's not the smallest number, but the number closest to 0. We have negative 2, negative 2/3, and negative 4. Negative 2/3 would be the closest to 0, which makes it the widest or shortest graph. So f of x, negative 2/3 x squared, will be our first graph when ordering from widest to narrowest. The next one, number closest to 0 after negative 2/3, would be negative 2. And the last one, the number farthest away from 0, would be negative 4.